Hey guys, it's Kaylor. Welcome to the YouTube channel. This is going to be part 3 of our design to code that we're currently working on. In this episode, we're going to finalize our design. So we're going to be going through the mock-up steps and the design step. So let's go ahead and hop into Adobe Xd and get working on our mock-up. So here in Adobe Xd, the first thing I'm going to do is duplicate our wireframe that we created in the first video. So I'm just going to hit Command D on that. And then we'll just drag this underneath it. I'm going to rename this to Mock. So first thing I'm going to do is replace our logo. So I'm just going to select that and delete it. And then go over here and grab it and drag it in. Just going to place this on the first column, and then we'll put about 50 to 40 spacing on the top of this. First, I'm going to try 40. I think I'm going to leave it there for now. Next, we can replace this button. So I'll just go ahead and grab our button up here for register and just drag that in. Then I'm going to select everything up here and then center them together and then realign our spacing from the top. So 40 looks good. Then we can delete these. And before we start working with our type, we need to go ahead and add these into our assets panel. So I'm going to select the first one and just hit the plus on character styles and then do the same for the rest. I'm also going to add these colors into my swatches. So over here, let's add our navigation. So I'm just going to type out platform. Let's set that to purple now so we can see it. Then I'm going to do one for clients. Service. And then we'll do one for account. So we need to set up our spacing. So let's drag these off to the left. And let's try 40 to 50 in between that and the button. So that's 50. That looks okay. We'll go with that. And then we'll just make sure that's evenly spaced throughout all of these. Then once we have that, I'm going to grab everything in our nav once again and make sure it's centered. And then since we have this awkward spacing in these texts, I'm just going to drop them down a pixel or two so that they're actually centered up. I'm going to switch these over to black now, and then I'll just add that to my asset so I can easily set things to it. And then we can delete these. So I'm just going to double check my font. Here we're using 20, so we'll put that over here in our character styles as well. We don't have that included over here, so I'm also going to create an alternate P tag and bump it up to 20 to match. So now we need our heading, so I'm just going to grab the type tool and just type in a bunch of gibberish, and then we can set that to our heading sized font, and then we'll just align this down here. Let's give this a catchy title, so we'll go pick the right house for you and your family. I'm actually going to change the H1, so I'm going to right click on this, select edit. There we go. And we need a period on the end of this. I'm going to make this a text area instead of a point text and then just drag it in until I'm happy. So let's go right there. And then since it's 2 lines now, we'll have to drag down a little bit. For the spacing on this, let's check what we had over here. 200. So let's go with 250 looks good. Then we can drag in our Get Started button. And for the spacing on that, we'll go with around 40. 40 looks nice. So we'll go with that. And I'm going to select both of these and drop them down even more. So now we're 300 from the top of the page. Down here, we're going to need the review section. So I'll just type out some text. Change this to a text area as well. I'm going to drop this down to 20. We're not actually going to use this, so I will delete the 16 size fonts. Too small. Then we'll just drag this over to about there. Make that 2 lines. Then I'll position this $120 from the bottom of our button. Underneath it, we're going to need a name of who wrote this. So I'll just do a dash Mike J. I'm going to set this to 20 and bold it. And then we'll just put that about 20 or so below this. 15 looks better. So we have that. Only thing now is we need our image. So I'm going to drag in the illustration we created earlier. We did this in part 2 in Illustrator. It's very large, so I'll just scale this down. Holding Shift and Alt. I'm going to center it to the artboard just so I can get an idea of where I want to put this. Then we can apply a shadow onto this. Maybe do something like 50 on the blur. Let's go ahead and remove our layout grid. So I think for a mock-up, that's going to work. Next thing we're going to do is finalize this design by adding some color and a little bit more to this illustration. We'll just do that here in Adobe Xd. So I'm back in Bear really quickly, and I want to note that we changed the 16 pixel font to 20, just so I remember later on that this was changed. And we've completed our mock-up, so now we're on to our design phase. So now let's go ahead and finish off this design. So I'm going to select the artboard and hit Command D. I'm going to change this to design. And first off, the first thing I want to do is change the artboard color, and we're going to do the lighter color purple. Color code is 574996. So now we kind of have these colors clashing. That's okay for now. And I'm going to change all of my text to white. So I'm just going to select all of it and then change it over. You can also do that by right-clicking up here, and everything's set to black. You can adjust to white. For now, I'll leave that alone. And then on this, we'll just change the fill and then the border. That'll work. Perfect. So now this looks a little bit better. This is looking bad, but I do want to drop the opacity on this. So I think I'm going to drop the opacity on this visually. So let's go with 65, and then let's also drop the name down to the 65 as well. And then over here, we need to improve our illustration. So the first thing I want to do to make this blend in better is I want to apply a ground, and I'm going to do that with the pen tool. And I'm going to do just random shapes until I get something I like. Let's see if we can get it on the first go here. So I'm just going to make some kind of wavy shape. I'll fill this in with our darkest color purple, which is 3A3076. Turn on the fill and then remove the border. And then we need to send this to the back. So I'm going to double click on it until I can see my points, and now I'm going to start editing this. I think that's something that I want. So to add more detail, we can do things like add a path, and I'm going to do that to make it look like stone. I'm just going to grab my ellipse tool, and I'll just drag out an oval like this. And since we're working with isometric art, we need to rotate this just slightly. So I'm just going to go something like that. And I'm going to fill this in with the lighter color purple, which is the same as the background, and then remove the border. And I'll just start to add these around and hold Alt and drag out to copy them. That looks pretty good. So I'm just going to select all of this, unselect this, and then unselect that. I'm holding Shift to do that. And then I'm going to drop the opacity down on these so that they're not so noticeable. Around 35, I'm using 36, and then I'm just going to rotate them slightly so they're more of an angle with the door, and then just going to push that up a little bit higher. So that looks like a decent enough path, and we can add a little bit more detail. We can even add some little bits of grass. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, and I'm just going to create a shape like this. Fill that in, and then remove the border. So I'm just going to select it and rotate it. And then I'm just going to take the points. I'm actually going to delete that point. And I want to curve these a little bit. So we have a shape kind of like that. Then I'm just going to duplicate it holding Alt, and then I'm going to flip it around. Like that, and then rotate it, and then we'll make it a little bit smaller so one side is larger than the other one. So I'll just go into my fill and then just drag down a little bit. See how that looks. That looks like some grass, I think. So I'll just group this together, and I'm going to scale it down. And we'll just kind of scatter these throughout the design. We'll put two together here. And then let's put one higher up in the corner, and we'll make it really small. Then we'll do another one at this size, kind of near the corner of the house. And then we'll put another small one over here on the side. And you can kind of do whatever you want and add a little bit more detail to the illustration, just so it kind of blends in with the web page a little bit. It's actually starting to look like this is kind of the ground. And to make it just blend a little bit more, we need to add a shadow to the house. So what I'm going to do is grab my pen tool, and I'm just going to select here and then drag over to here and then create a triangle like this. That way we're keeping that same path. I'm just going to fill that really quickly, and then we're actually going to drag this to right there on that point, and then I'm going to scale it up holding Shift, just like that. And I'm going to double click on it, create another point, and then I'm going to drag this back to where the other point of the house would be, and we get something like that. So now we can apply a black to this, and I'm just going to lower the opacity till I get a shadow the color I'm wanting, which is around 5%. I'm going to change this to a gradient. So I'm going to make sure both of these points are set to solid black. Then on the topmost swatch, this one right here, I'm going to drag the fill down to 0. Next, I'm going to send this to the back, Command Shift left square bracket key, and then hit Command right bracket key to bring it in front of this shape. And I'm going to lower the drop shadow on this to something like 30 maybe even 20. That looks a lot better. So now we kind of have that shadow from the house. Since the light is hitting it over here, it's going that way. Now at this point, I would call this my landing page for my website. I would call this done. If I need to make small adjustments, I can. But overall, I think we've come to the finished design of this website. So let's go back into Bear, and we can check off our design. So one thing you might want to do is here in Bear, you might want to keep track of your changes or your update log. So I'm just going to title this changes, then create a list, and then I'll say changed font P to 20 pixels. And you can keep track of your updates in a nice organized way. Then once you go to update the website later on, you'll understand why you did this and how, since you have an updated log of what you've changed and why. So that's a really cool thing you can do. So next video, we're going to go ahead and head into brackets and start developing this into a website. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more ER related content. Make sure you have that notification bell on so you don't miss out on the next video. And as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.